people were so encouraging. On your race bib, it has your name, and people calling me by my name, like, yeah, Francisco, let's go. You got this. You're doing so great. That was so, so helpful. Being called by name for encouragement. Okay, so welcome back to All Good in the Brotherhood podcast with me, Brother Francisco, and Nate Whitaker. Although he is not physically present with me right now, he is with us over the phone. So what's up, my dude?
I'm with you in spirit, bro.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
How is your spirit today?
How's my spirit? My spirit's great, dude. It's been a good day. I just downloaded the Hallow app. That's been pretty clutch.
Okay, nice.
And was doing some prayer with that earlier, so that was really nice. And yeah, day's been pretty good. How about you?
Today, I mean, weather-wise, today is fantastic. Can't beat like 72 in end of October with all the leaves.
Oh, it's glorious.
It looks like fall, but it feels like summer. That's like my favorite combo.
It's absolutely the perfect combo. We got an Indian summer going on because it dipped.
It's
Temperatures
true.
dipped pretty bad a few weeks ago, and we got a frost, but now we're back up to basically summer temperatures. So
I forgot that that's what they call it.
yeah.
I only remember that phrase from Little House on the Prairie. I think
Yeah.
tells Laura that because he's a farmer or whatever, and he can tell the seasons and how things are coming, that they're going to have an Indian summer or something like that. So
Right.
that's cool.
Good reference, though. Pa is low-key the coolest dad in TV history.
Well, and just in history. I mean, he's not just a TV
Well,
character.
no, he's
like,
real, but
actually...
I mean, we're big fans of our dad, and there's a lot of good dads out there. But as far as characters in a show go, he's got to be one of the top 3 dads of all time.
He's pretty cool.
He's goated.
He's pretty cool. So, yeah, I'm doing pretty well. Still a little sore, but honestly, today much better than the last 2 days.
Yeah, dude. You
My
must be pretty dead. You just completed a marathon.
I did
How are
26.2
your
miles.
quads?
Officially one of those guys. My quads,
Awesome.
as of today, are much better. I didn't totally hate every step I took. Monday and actually, honestly, Tuesday was worse.
Going upstairs probably hurt, though, right?
Upstairs was actually not as bad as you think. Coming downstairs was miserable. Just because there's a lot more pressure on your quads. Upstairs, I think you put more pressure on your calves.
Right.
And yeah, coming downstairs, there's a couple times where my legs just almost gave out and I just almost full sent it downstairs. It's like, I give up on life. I ran 26. Like, if I end now,
Yeah, come on.
I peaked.
Retire.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah. So how was the race? Like, what was your experience of running a marathon?
yeah, dude, that's what I wanted to talk about. So good intuition. It's almost like you knew that this was planned. Yeah, dude.
That's crazy.
Well,
We communicated about this before doing this episode.
wild about that. And for those of you who forget what Nate looks like or don't know, here's a picture right here. Yeah, so we'll bring that up periodically just so you remember his beautiful face.
Okay, now I'm really wondering which picture of me you just picked, but let's go on.
I'll leave that up for a surprise. Well, yeah, just even before I get into the race, just like a little background of why I decided to run a marathon. Because, I mean, I've told this to a lot of people. If you had asked me a year ago, or maybe even like 6 or 7 months ago, well, would you ever run a marathon? I would have told you flat out, absolutely not. I mean, yeah,
Really? Wait, why is that?
I think I just didn't really see the point of running that far. I was like,
Fair enough.
like a 5K or 10K, that seems like a good race distance. I was also just kind of hesitant, the idea of like all that training, because I figured it would detract a lot from like my other exercise, my like working out or lifting. And I've kind of liked a lot of the gains I've seen in lifting since I've become a monk. So I was like, I don't want to lose those. But yeah, I don't know. And I just knew it was like, well, I'll never be like a crazy good distance runner, but I can probably be like pretty good at like mid short distance races, like 5Ks or something. But yeah, I don't know. So we did we, as in me, Tom, our older brother, Sarah, our sister, brother Bosco, and he's now brother Jacob, but back then he was a postulant, James. we ran in the Pittsburgh Marathon as a relay race, which we're planning to do this year, and you better be on the team, Nate. Otherwise, yeah, I know. I'm just kidding. I know you're going to be on it.
Oh, bro, I wanted to do it the last 2 years.
I know you
in
have.
college every time.
Yeah,
so.
I know. I'm so pumped for you to be on the team this year.
I'm already hyped to do that.
So yeah, we did the relay race, and we had done it the year before, actually, 2023, and we had done pretty well, but I was still playing rugby at that point, so like my focus on the running was not nearly as dedicated. But this year, it was a lot more intentional, and I just saw like so much improvements in my running, and I was able to do both running and lifting like at the same time. Now, I was only running like 4.5 miles in my distance, so it wasn't like training for a marathon or anything, but I was still having really consistent running. And by the time it came for the race, I was in the best running shape I had ever been in my entire life. Being able to maintain like a really, really good pace. And when we were done, and we did like phenomenally well. I think we actually placed, but was some really weird like timing issues that happened that like didn't score us. But anyways, that's beside the point. But when we were done, I was just like, man, I was like, I don't want to kind of lose this shape I'm in. I want to keep running. Almost like, if I put in this much work, I should keep it up. So that same week, because that race was on a Sunday, I think that Wednesday or Thursday, I didn't have much going on. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try to see how fast I could run a half marathon. The longest I'd ever run in my life up to that point was like 10 or 11 miles. So I'd never run that kind of distance. But I was like, I'm just to see how I can do it. So I just go out and run. And I finish running at about like, what was it? Like an hour and 43 minutes. So that's like a 7:45 pace. Having never run a half marathon before.
That's good for a first try.
So I was like, dude, I can do this. I definitely. So at that point, I was like, I think maybe I'm going to look up some like half marathon races to do. That would be pretty sweet. Maybe I'll train for next year's Pittsburgh, or I'll find another race. But then I also realized, like, man, I don't really want to wait a whole year. I don't know if I'll still have this kind of energy or motivation to run next year. So, like 2 days later, I just started looking up half marathons in like the tri-state area for like sometime in September or October, because I figured like that would probably give me a decent amount of time to train, and the fall's a great time to run because the weather's great. But then it just got in my head, like, if you're going to do a half, why don't you just do a whole dumb thing? I mean, it's an accomplishment to tell someone you did 13.1, because that's a lot. But
full send, bro.
But with me, competition as one of my strengths, like I just can't settle for that. So I was like, you know what? No, we're just gonna do a full thing. We're gonna do a full marathon. So I was looking stuff up, and the Columbus Marathon came up in October of this year, and the day I was looking up was the second to last day for early bird registration. I was like, you know what? We're just gonna do it. Like, I'm not gonna think about this. Which is normally not me. I definitely like think through things a lot like that. But I was like, you know what? No, I want to do this. We're going to do it. So I full sent. And I'd even convinced a couple of other people to do it with me. Or at least to do the half. So two friends, people who worked in campus ministry, I was like, oh yeah, they were so on board. Well, they ended up not. One, because Sophie found out she was expecting. So that was obviously a valid reason not to train for a full marathon. She did run a half actually in Titusville still.
That's crazy.
In July with Dominique, who was the other girl who I worked with.
Bro, that baby's gonna be shredded by the time.
That's what I told her. I said, you should run with that child like at every stage of their life. So by the time that they're in like their 20s, they're like already an Olympian. Yeah. So I was like, you know what, we're gonna do it. So then I started training in June. And then the both of them told me that they were like, yeah, we're probably not going to do that. So I was like, okay, we're going to do this by myself. But then I was talking to another friend of mine, Lauren, and she had decided that, I don't know, I actually can't remember if it was because I told her that I was doing the full, or that we found out individually that we were both training for races. She was training for a half, and I was training for a full. And I mentioned to her, like, yeah, well, these other people I was going to run with aren't going to do it now. And she said, well, if I'm doing a half and it's earlier that month, I've already trained. Like, why don't I just run the half that day too? So you have someone to run with. Or at least, someone to support you mentally in the fact that, you're not the only person on that race course. who's suffering that you like know.
Right.
And so she did, which was
Solidarity.
super, super awesome. So she was there, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of what got me on board with it. So training was some of the most intense physical activity I've ever done. You know, each week running longer than I've ever run in my life. And it was funny. There was one day, I think it was when I ran 18 miles in training. I sent a screenshot of it to Lauren, to Brother Finbar, and Brother Bosco, because the two of them were going to come and watch us. And I just sent a screenshot of like, oh, I hit 18 today, like getting close to the longest day before the race. And the pattern because I sent like a screenshot of the map of what I ran. And so Lauren texted back. She said, were you trying to draw anything, with your route? And I looked at it for a second, and it kind of looked like someone was giving the bird. So I'll actually show the picture of this course so you can kind of see an idea of what it looks like. But it really just kind of looks like someone's giving a bird a little
That's
bit
crazy.
if you use your imagination. So when she said, what were you drawing? I said, it's a middle finger to the Athenians. And
Oh,
like
so true.
no one got it for a little while. There was no response. I was like, I didn't think that joke was that niche, but maybe it
No,
is.
any history joke is niche, bro. We have relative senses of humor based on being homeschoolers, but objectively, I don't think many people know that that's what the marathon is named after.
Yeah. Do you want
well,
to
they-
explain that? What's the origin of a marathon?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So there was a dude who he wasn't actually. This wasn't the battle between the Spartans and the Athenians. I think this was a battle between basically.
It was a battle
the
of
whole-
Marathon, right?
This is a battle of Marathon, which was fought against the Persians. Right? And so basically, there was a dude. I don't even remember exactly what message he was trying to deliver. Was he trying to deliver that the battle was won?
Yeah. Persia has
Okay,
been
so-
destroyed. We are victorious, something like that.
That's right. Okay, so the Greeks joined forces together and they defeated the Persians, who were going to be the would-be conquerors. And then this dude ran right about 26.2 miles all the way back to Athens to deliver the message that the battle had been won. And apparently the story goes, right after he got there and delivered the message, he died. So bro's probably booking it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
What a Chad, dude. Running to deliver a message and then dying. Like, what a punctuation point.
why didn't they give him a horse? That's what I want to know.
That's true. I wonder. And he was probably doing it at full armor too, which is also like crazy.
Nah, dude. You know how the Greeks did athletic stuff.
Okay, well, yeah, he was a soldier though, so maybe he
That's
wasn't,
fair.
Anyways, so that's like the origin. So that's what I was referring to when I said, yeah, it's a middle finger to the Athenians. And it took a while for them to respond, and then they thought it was funny. So that kind of became our joke for the rest of the time. It's just like, keep on running so we can keep on giving those middle fingers to these ancient Athenians, these ancient Greeks. So that actually, she wanted that to be the title of this podcast episode, was a middle finger to the Athenians. But I think
Yeah.
we're gonna settle for something else.
In case we have one or two viewers from Greece, I think that's not a good call.
I agree. Actually, I think we might. I think there are a few people who follow us from Greece.
Yo, shout out to all y'all.
Hey, a life goal would be to run the original marathon. That is a race, and I would love to do that someday. That would be sick.
Actually,
Yeah.
dude,
Anyways, so fast forward to race day, because that's probably
Let's
what most
survive
people
it.
are actually
dunk on the original guy.
interested in.
Yeah, sorry. So how was the race?
Yeah. So, okay, what do you want? Do you want like a play-by-play? Do you want what was like, how was I feeling, or what was it like? I don't know. It's such a crazy experience. I could talk for honestly hours about it. So, what would you first want to know?
Yeah, well, first tell me generally a play-by-play. I kind of want to know the different moments
Okay.
as they happened chronologically. But then after that, I'm going to ask you how you felt at different stages. But first, to start off by telling us how it went.
Yeah, so tried to get to bed somewhat early the night before, but I was honestly like so excited. It was crazy for me thinking back that how excited I was to run 26 miles. So I got like some intermittent sleep, woke up at like 4, and was just like geared. So I did my prayer, which was a really good way to settle before the race. Got down to the course. It was pretty chilly, honestly. It was like 39 or 40 when we started. But I was so excited, I didn't really notice the cold that much. So then 7 o'clock, the gun goes off. They shoot fireworks off. and they let the fastest people go first, like the elite runners, because they're actually, competing for the prize. The rest of us are just kind of there. Then they sent us off in waves. I was scheduled to be in the first wave, but I opted to take the second half of the first wave, I guess is what it would be, in hopes that it would motivate me to pass the people ahead of me.
So you get a little adrenaline kicks.
Exactly. Yep. So we're going, and honestly, the first 13 or 14 miles just like flew by. I was feeling great. I was knocking it out of the park. I was running faster than I had in any of my training, and just
we tracked you on an app. There was an app for tracking you, and you were cooking. Your time was lower than you expected to be for the first half.
It was. And I mean, it's very presumptuous to think at only halfway through a marathon that like I'm going to kill it, but that's kind of what I felt like at 13. I'm like, man, I'm like doing solidly great here. And part of that was because, I'd taken like some good energy drinks and ate some good like energy food before. And also just like they call it the runner's high. Like when you get a kick, just like the fact that you're exercising like that, which usually hits me around mile 10. So I was just definitely like in that good place. Well, then we hit the half, and so many people split off. There was about 3,500 people who were running the full, and about another 7,000 that were running the half. So when all of a sudden you see like 2/3 of people you're running with just go, it takes a little bit out of you. Like, oh wow, I could be that person. I could be done. I feel great. If I finish now, I'd be fine. But just keep on going. Well, probably around, I don't know, I think mile 16 is when I started to feel like a little bit of decline. Up until that point, like I said, everything was smooth. I actually I saw a friend of mine from college who I hadn't seen since he graduated. He literally ran up next to me. I'm like, oh, Dugan, what's up? And he's like, whoa, what are you doing here? I'm like, well, running, obviously. He was running the half, though.
Oh, dude, I'm just lost. I was looking for IHOP.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I just joined this random race, and now I'm going to end up running another 20-something miles. But, it's just my morning routine.
That's hilarious.
So
wait, good question. When did the runner's high wear off?
Yeah, I think it was about mile 15 or 16. So some of the energy and this like the adrenaline and the runner's high was starting to like come on its descent. So that I was starting to really feel my body. And I definitely probably should have drank like some more of the Gatorade and water stations leading up to that point, but because I was feeling so good, I didn't want to like slow down in any sense of the word. But so I think that probably attributed to some of it too. But yeah, so like mile 16 hits, and I just start to feel just like a lowering in my energy, and that my calves are getting a little tight, or not my calves, my quads. But it wasn't too bad. I didn't drop my pace like extraordinarily, because I was running around like a 7:45.8 up to this point. And it probably dropped down to like 8:15. So I was like, okay, like I can hold this. And if I keep this, I'll still hit roughly what I wanted my goal pace to be by the end, which was like a 3:30. So like we're going. Well, then there's a slight incline. We start hitting a hill around mile 18. And bro, it just takes it out of me. I start dropping like another 15, 20, 30 seconds off my pace. And I like trying mind over matter, like, no, go faster. But I could not make myself go any faster. So I was like, okay, well, we're just going to go at this pace then, I guess, right now. So we're kind of plotting more at like an 8:40 now. And it's getting worse and worse. Like I'm just feeling my energy just slowly decline more and more and more. And it's defeating because now people are starting to pass me because I'm slowing down. Other people who have their energy or who have conserved themselves maybe better than I did are starting to run past. So started to now also compare myself, be like, oh gosh, dang it. Like what was I doing wrong? Why couldn't I hold this? Like I've run 20 miles before and didn't die. Like I'm not even at 20 yet and I'm already like falling apart. And I still have 6 more freaking miles after that to go. So I try to they have these things called like energy gels or runner gels. They're basically like gelatin that has like sugars and caffeine and electrolytes and stuff. So I had a few in my pocket. So I took one of those and they act up, or like they hit you really quick. So like probably like 10, 15 minutes later, I was like, oh, okay, I feel a little better again. So I start moving. Then mile 20 hits like an absolute bus. And it just starts slowing down. And I still like going. Well, the problem was, I know this guy like meant to be encouraging, but I hit mile 20 and he's like, all right, you got it. Only a 10K left. I was like, oh my gosh, 10K.
That's
We've run
brutal.
this far already. People were so encouraging, and I'll like maybe we'll talk about that part too in a little bit. But on your race bib, it has your name, and people calling me by my name, like, yeah, Francisco, let's go, you got this, you're doing so great. That was so helpful. Being called by name for encouragement. Like if I ever watch a race again and I know that person's name, it's just so good to use it. Because instead of just like a general like, oh, runners, you got it, which people were doing, which is still supportive. But man, when they use my name, it's just like, okay, like yes, Francisco, I can do it. You know, we can
It
do
makes
it.
you feel like you're seen as an individual
Exactly.
person, not
Yeah.
just as a general crowd member.
Mm-hmm.
And they say the sweetest sound in anyone's ear is the sound of their own name. So
Mm, I
there's
like
that.
that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
so there you are,
there we
mile
are. Yep,
20. Feeling like you
20,
got hit by a bus.
and I just start declining more and more and more. And then
Now, the race itself at this point, was it level or were you still going uphill?
oh, at this point it was pretty level. Yeah. It, honestly, generally overall, it was like a pretty flat course. There was a hill at around like I don't know, like 13, and then again at 18, and then one more at 22. So between 18 and 22, it was like still mostly flat. And then I hit 21, 22, and oh my gosh, I thought 20 was bad. These 2 miles, oh, it sucked. Um, it was somewhere between 21 and 22. I rounded a corner, and I didn't mentally. I mean, I was like shuffling at this point. Pace was declining now over a 9-minute mile, and
Wow.
I'm shuffling, and I turn a corner, and without like mentally deciding on this or whatever, I just stop running. And my body just, I feel like there is actually no energy left in my body, and it just shuts off. And I just kind of am standing there for a second. And then I just start walking because I'm like, I actually don't know if I can keep on running.
Well, you got to keep moving.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you stop altogether, you're done. But I said to myself, okay, you know what? Screw how long it takes me. I am finishing this damn race. But if I have to just walk, I guess I'm just gonna have to walk. So I'm walking a little bit, and I had one more gel in my pocket, so I decided to take it, and just like maybe mentally, because I took it or whatever, it gave me just a little enough to be like, okay, you can jog. You might not be able to run anymore, but you can jog. So I was able to like shuffle for a while more, and yeah, it was really like, I mean, my pace was nothing close to anymore to what I wanted it to be. But at this point, I was like here for survival. My goal had been to run a 3:30, and at this point, I'm like already at like I know I'm gonna be over it. So I'm like, you know what? It's just okay. Stop comparing yourself to the people who are running past you. Stop comparing yourself to Brother Bosco because he's the one his time you're trying to beat, but you know you're not going to. Like you're still gonna finish. So like okay. And then it came a water station like around 23, and I just stopped to drink the water because I just needed it. And if you're jogging while you try to drink, it just sloshes everywhere. So I started walking again and didn't want to run. I was like, come on, bud, you got to finish. And people are just being so encouraging. Then I hit 24, and that's where I saw Brother Bosco, Brother Finbar. Lauren had finished her half, so she was there cheering.
Yeah.
A family named the Garlands, who are friends of Lauren and Brother Finbar, who are from Columbus. They were all there watching to cheer us, and they were just all going crazy when I was coming around 24.
That's awesome.
And then there was a slight downhill, and I was like, okay, you know what?
Praise God.
You can coast for 2 miles. You can do it. And my pace picked up, probably like almost 30 seconds faster for the last
That's
two
awesome.
something miles. And it's funny, Bosco has a picture of, and I'll show that real quick. The picture of me here at like mile 8, and I'm super excited, clearly jazzed. And then there's a mile picture at 25, and I just in so much misery.
Wild.
It's just, yeah, I'm not even looking at the camera. It's just like zero part of me wants to be there.
Understandably.
But yeah,
Now-
that's kind of like the general play-by-play. And I did finish with a 3:42, which ends up being like an 8:30 overall pace.
Yeah, that's fine,
So-
bro. First time.
Which, yeah, I mean, compared
Plenty
to the
more in your
average, is
future, I'm
still.
guessing.
Well, yeah, I think there's a higher likelihood in that than I ever would have guessed of maybe doing them
Yeah.
again. But anyways, so that's the general play-by-play.
That's awesome, dude. Thanks for sharing that. Now, you said at some points you were trying to like kind of boost yourself mentally.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any points where you started talking to yourself out loud?
Um, I think there was like 2 or 3 times I did, and those weren't necessarily like telling me like, okay, Francisco or Sam, whatever I tell myself, like keep it up or get moving. It was more I actually had written on my forearm
Yeah.
um, a name
Oh,
for
yes.
each mile, and I was offering up that mile in its pain, its joy, and its suffering for that person and their intention. So I had that on my arm the whole time, and so during the really really sucky miles, I just kept on looking at my arm and saying that person's name out loud to myself, and like saying prayers. Um, Said a lot of Hail Marys, and actually a prayer that I just like was saying over and over to myself was the final prayer of the Divine Mercy Chaplet. Eternal God, in whom mercy is endless. And then especially like focusing on the part that I might not
Love that
despair
prayer.
nor become despondent, because I was
Yeah.
definitely like borderline despairing that I'm not going to finish this race.
At the very
Um,
least, probably feeling despondent. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like
Right.
I don't want to respond to any of this. Like I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. Like what's the good in any of this? Um, and then just realizing, like a race that gets you the time that you want is awesome, but a race in which you can suffer for other people, like
Yeah.
that's honestly on the spiritual realm way better.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
So that, and
It's
then
more
good.
similar to the Via Dolorosa, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not a particularly enjoyable experience, right? But it's, or even triumphant in its own way, but it's more something that can be offered up.
Yeah, honestly. And when I was really in the throes of it, I was thinking like, well, apparently God wants this person to get like a lot of extra grace. And maybe they're like, maybe I'm feeling physically a little bit of what they're going through mentally or emotionally or spiritually. So
That's
I
awesome.
put the family on the back half. So you were
Good. You knew we all needed something
exactly.
more intense
Yeah,
suffering.
I think you were like mile. I want to say, let's see, 14, 15. I think you were mile like 18 or 19. So you were definitely like
Nice, right?
in
When
the
your life was sucking for
right.
you.
Yeah, right when
Yeah.
I wanted to just cancel on everything.
Perfect.
Um,
Perfect. I'm glad to hear that.
so
Thanks for that. Thanks for that, bro. I actually really appreciate that. That's super cool. By the way, were there any points where you started going loopy? Like I know there's the runner's high,
mm-hmm.
but I know especially if maybe you're lacking hydration or whatnot and you're just running, you can reach a point where you start not tripping out, but getting
Yeah, no, yeah.
kind of moving around like things become blurry, you know, you maybe enter tunnel vision. Did you have any moments like that?
Yeah, so at that time when my body just stopped moving around 22. That was happening. Like as I was walking, I didn't feel like I was in reality. Like things were kind of like floating around left and right, and I knew I was moving forward, but it didn't
That's
feel like I was moving. Um,
yeah.
and
That's lit, dude. So why use hallucinogens when you can just go for a long enough run, I guess.
exactly, and what are the health benefits too,
Absolutely. Well, yeah. Right.
So, yeah, it was crazy. But
What was the best moment of the race?
hmm, hmm.
Other than maybe the start, maybe you felt really good at the beginning, but what was
I
a moment that stood out as the best?
honestly, I think when it came time for the half marathon people to split off, um, like when I hit that point, because I kind of knew that the first half was not going to feel that bad, just because in training I've run over half marathons, weeks after weeks after weeks, probably like 6 or 7 times. So I knew I could get to that distance without much difficulty. It was when I hit that point, especially since we split and they started going downhill and we started going uphill. Um, I just knew like, okay, you're gonna have to actually put in some work now. Like, yes, you've been putting in work, but you haven't really felt it. You're gonna actually have to put in some work, and it just kind of
Yeah.
floored me of like, you know what? Like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna finish. We're gonna cross. And those people chose a half. Good for them. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment. I chose the full, and we're just gonna dig in. Um, and knowing that, I was like, I will also see that finish line. It's just going to take way longer for me to get there.
Yeah.
But it felt like such a sense of accomplishment that like I'm actually running this thing, and now is the deciding factor. Like once you pass this option to go left and you don't take it, it's only ahead.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really cool. I think the post I put on Instagram was just like praise God that His grace is sufficient, or praise God that His power is made perfect in our weakness, because it's exactly what I felt a lot of the time near the end, especially.
That's awesome. We have a lot of moments like that in our lives where we make some sort of decision, and there's a process of decision making, or kind of a grace period in which we can still go back on our word or maybe change our minds. But then it's really an exciting feeling when you take that leap of faith. And
Mm-hmm.
in this case, for you, it was choosing to keep going on, just pass by that last opportunity to end the race for yourself easier. But we have stuff like that where we feel the end of a grace period coming on, and we just got to make a decision and just stick to the hard thing and allow ourselves to endure a longer suffering. But it's
Mm-hmm.
scary approaching those moments, I think, but it feels so good right afterwards when you finally just confidently make that decision that no, I'm not gonna buckle, I'm not gonna give up. I'm just going to make this hard decision and stick with it.
And the thing about that though, just like I've been reflecting a lot because Bosco asked me like what was the most spiritual part of the race, um, and I told him that it was when that same moment where I just really felt like I don't know if I can finish, because it was at that moment that I was thinking like this is not the race I envisioned. This is not what I had in mind for what to happen. I've gotten this far. Why can't I go just a little bit farther?
Yeah.
What is wrong with me? What did I choose to do? What didn't I choose to do that should have helped? Why couldn't I have controlled myself a little bit more in the first 10 miles? That probably would have assisted me finishing these last 5. There's like all these things going back and forth. And then it kind of dawned on me that is exactly what we do in the spiritual life. We envision what it's going to be like to have a relationship with God. And times we're floored and we're excelling and we're running the race. And then other times we're still on the road of the race, but we aren't moving forward the way we thought. It doesn't feel the same. It is so painful. It's only uphill. It's draining. And we're still going towards the finish line, but we thought we would pass in glory or that we would run across it with energy left over. And that's just not going to necessarily be the case. And there'll be people who are cheering on you, or who like the saints, the intercession of the saints, calling us by name, that like might help us move a little bit farther, but they're not going to get us across the finish line in the end. Like it's only grace that gets you there.
Absolutely. And I think in those moments where our spiritual lives unfold in a different way than we envisioned, our preconceived expectations can actually multiply our sorrows. Because
Mm-hmm.
we, like you said, imagine a certain way that our spiritual life is going to go, and we imagine it being very blissful. And as they say, hope springs eternal. So no matter how many experiences we've had in the past where things don't quite work out the way we plan, we still always believe that this next time things are going to work out just how I imagined.
Right. Yep.
And then we kind of add to our own grief, because when we have those expectations, then when things start unfolding or unraveling in a way that's not necessarily ideal, then aside from just that things don't feel ideal, we also now beat ourselves up because we say, wow, not only does this hurt, but this isn't how I imagined it was going to go. And so we kind of keep it on ourselves. But I guess the rewarding thing therein is just what you had to do physically, but what we all have to do spiritually to some extent is just keep on keeping on. And swallow our pride, because that was the thing. It sounded like there's a moment in the race where you just had to swallow your pride and recognize, I'm not going to get maybe the time that I imagined, but I'm going to get the time that I'm going to get, and I'm going to strive hard to make that as good as possible.
Yeah, dude, and I totally agree that like even in like the sense of accomplishment when I finally did finish, I think some of those things were still lingering. That like this isn't what I was hoping, and this was not expecting. So it almost like soured some of it for a while. It's like, man, like, okay, like, why? It was literally 12-minute difference. Why couldn't I have done like just 12 minutes better? And it definitely comparison was going on, and they say comparison is the thief of joy. So that
you probably lost some of the joy from just finishing the race.
I did, yeah, no, it's true, and just like almost looking at like other ways to like escape that reality that like maybe you didn't do as well as you wanted, but you still finished. And yeah, it's crazy. I like how you said it, like compounds your sorrows, because I mean I've had so many people just like, congratulations, that's amazing, I could never do that much. I had one monk say, is like, you know what, I think, he said, except for sleeping, I don't think I've ever done anything that consistent long in my life, and you literally
that's
ran
so honest.
that
I love
long.
that.
And I was like, yeah, dude, that's true. But then like the other times where like people have zero concept, they're like, oh, like so an 8:30, so that's like a trot, right? Like, are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
how about I trot and you run, and I probably will still beat you. Um, but you know what I mean?
Well, hold on there. You sound a little, yeah.
No, no. So that's what I'm saying. Like what I'm saying here, Nate, is not like, oh, let me like get. I let myself get tussled about those things because of the way I had let myself get affected, versus still being like living in the joy of what happened. And I've definitely been able to come out, like, I think today especially, and like yesterday evening and today, just kind of reflecting like, man, like it happened, like it happened, and that was awesome. And
Yeah.
I had a goal and I reached that goal. The goal from the beginning was run 26.2 miles, right?
That's
I
awesome.
set an extra
Right.
goal on top of it to like aim for a
Yes.
time because I'm a competitive person, right?
And we often do that, especially you and I and many of us
Exactly.
are competitive people. So we like to set goals for ourselves as ideals, but part of humility is learning to accept that those goals might not always pan out.
And yeah, it's just, and
But
especially
it's okay.
when I look at my prayer life and like in correlation to the marathon, it's like I put in so much work into this marathon to reach a goal. And maybe if I didn't quite reach that goal, like I still want to work hard. But then thinking about like prayer life, it's like, am I willing to put in that much work into my prayer? Because the difference between the goal for the marathon and the goal of prayer is that one is a relationship with God and the finish line is heaven. Another one is just an arbitrary time.
That's true.
And that if I'm worked up and upset about a marathon, then I should really also focus like infinity times more on prayer. And people aren't going to
Yeah.
congratulate me for, oh, good job, you prayed well today, or you have a
No.
really good pace in prayer. But that's the finish line that St. Paul talks about when he says, run so as to win. You know, you aim for the goal, but unlike a marathon, like you don't actually stop training. But at the same time, we do need to treat it like a marathon in a sense that we can't just sprint expecting that like we're going to excel or move forward exponentially at all times when we're dedicated to prayer and a relationship with God.
Yeah.
That sometimes it is really going to feel like that uphill battle. We're going to lose so much energy. Yeah, those are just some thoughts I'm spitting out.
No, I love that. And I think in what's common to both these is just humility has to be a part of perseverance.
I love that.
Because, like what you said, it's not just that you envisioned a race going a certain way and that was some event that was coming up in your future and then maybe didn't unfold exactly the way you hoped. But you not only envisioned that ideal, but you also worked really hard to do everything you could to make sure that it was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So you were being perseverant. But you need to root that perseverance in some humility, recognizing that no matter how hard you try, things aren't always going to go right.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say you, I don't mean you.
Yeah,
I mean
right.
any
No.
of us.
Yeah, anyone.
Because that's something that sometimes the thing is, I think sometimes we might be tempted to compensate for a lack of humility by just focusing on diligence or perseverance, where we say, well, yeah, I don't have to accept that I don't have to learn to accept defeat gracefully because I'm just going to work so hard that I'll never have to. If I'm just diligent enough, if I'm perseverant enough, then I will never have to suffer defeat and I won't have to be humbled in that way. Even if we don't say that to ourselves out loud, we sometimes think that subconsciously.
Yeah.
But it's really important to say, no, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to work my ass off and be perseverant, but it might not even go the way I plan in spite of that. And yet the perseverance is still worth it, right?
Yeah. It's
working
virtue.
toward that goal is always still worth the effort.
Yeah, that's oftentimes I don't love the, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Like sometimes that like platitude kind of
That's
bothers
pretty
me.
cringe overall, especially spiritually.
But I kind of get more what you're saying about that here. That like, okay, yes, if you don't accept the journey gracefully, or with humility, then even if you get to the goal, it's not as good, because if you get there with almost a sense of I did this, then you're not going to look at the other graces or the other things that got you there. Versus in humility, you could say, okay, I did everything I could, but there was still some things that were outside of my control.
Yes.
And I'm going to humbly accept those things as what God designed to be part of this journey. And I definitely, like, part of that, I talked about like people encouraging me, by name. So I just also like community, the community around like this race and preparation, and the community in it just was so good. I mean, if Lauren wasn't running the full, but if she wasn't running the half, I also don't think I would have been as motivated to continue my training even prior to the moment, because just she's from St. Louis, so I don't like to see her. But
Right.
the knowing that like, okay, she's training her hardest for her race, I got to train my hardest for my race. And then when we're running, I know she's putting her effort out, so I got to put my effort out. People are on the sidelines cheering and encouraging. And guys, even runners, because I know as I was like falling apart near the end, this one guy who we had been like passing each other back and forth over the course of the whole race, just came up behind me and he's like, dude, you got it. Like, he said, you're a champ, and I'm just going to run with you for a little while just to like, so that you're okay. And I was like, dude, thank you.
What a stud. That's awesome.
And then when we were going, he's like, all right, you got this. You got this. He said, you don't need me. He said, you can finish on your own. Like, you got it. I was like, dude, yeah. Like, and that's exactly what we need in the spiritual life too. Just like those reminders of perseverance. But if we're prideful about it, we'll not be able to receive them well. And then we're depriving ourselves of so much more goodness than we would be if we can also be humble about achievement.
Yeah. I think it's significant, just agreeing with what you're saying. I love that you brought up the idea of encouragement. And it's such a grace from God that stranger showed you encouragement. But it seems significant to me that St. Paul, who was arguably one of the most hardworking of the first, sorry.
You're good.
I have a little bit of a cough right now. St. Paul was arguably one of the most hardworking Christians in the early church.
Mm-hmm.
And so he demonstrated through his missionary work the virtue of perseverance. He demonstrated diligence so much. He demonstrated that willingness to put in hard work all the time and strive to run the race well, right? He always strived to run so as to win. And yet, who did he choose as his companion? He chose Barnabas, who obviously we know the name Barnabas means son of encouragement. So
I love that.
It's so useful if we approach any task or any source of growth in the spiritual life or the physical life or any aspect of our lives. When we're trying to approach some goal and we want to work hard at it, we have to remember to surround ourselves with encouragement. And we have to find friends who are going to be there to encourage us. And we have to be willing to encourage our friends when they themselves are striving for goals. Because, be the change you want to see. Like, if you want someone to show you love in some way, you got to be willing to first show it to them. So we got to be encouraging to our brothers and sisters, either through like those words of encouragement, like that one guy did in the race.
Yeah.
Or through just that quiet accountability that you had in the form of Lauren, where you knew, like, you didn't have to be seeing her throughout the race and checking in on her. You just knew that she was there. She was pushing herself and you were pushing yourself, and you were both motivating each other spiritually. So I don't know, that just kind of struck me that without encouragement, motivation and hard work aren't going to go that far because we're not made to be perseverant in isolation from each other.
Yeah, dude. That's so good. And yeah, like you mentioned the Via Dolorosa, right? Jesus' own suffering journey. Like Mary's presence was his encouragement.
Absolutely.
And it's one of the it's one of the stations of the cross, right? Jesus meets his mother. And especially, I love that scene in The Passion where, she runs to him and is like imagining him falling as a child.
Dude.
And then
that scene every time is game over, bro. When he looks at her and he says, "See, woman, I make all things new."
I know.
Or see, mother, I make all things new.
It rips you.
My face just erupts in tears. It's crazy.
It's so good.
It's like a freaking geyser.
What I love that she says is just like, "I'm here," and like that's the encouragement that Jesus needed right there. It's just like, I am here. I'm suffering with you. I'm here. And that encouragement of presence. So however we can encourage other people with presence, whether it's words of encouragement, just reminding them like, hey, I am here when you need me, or I'm going to go out there with you and run that race or lift with you, or go out and pray with you. When you're struggling with your addiction, I'm going to sit here with you. Any of those things, like that's why, like, St. Paul talks about like this race, right? Because, and he says that, there are athletes in this stadium. You know, he's not talking about one person running a race on their own. Running a race on your own makes absolutely no sense. Competition doesn't exist if there's not actually someone else that you're running with or against.
True. Iron sharpens iron.
But I feel like that having competition itself is a form of encouragement, if it's done well and received humbly, because the people are saying like, look, like all together we can do this. If you're not here, I have no reason to run, but you being here actually is an encouraging reason for me to run too. And to take that into the spiritual life, like I pray not because it's just because of me, like that just I need prayer, because the body of Christ needs it. And if I don't pray, if one member suffers, the whole body suffers.
Absolutely, dude.
So, yeah, man.
Having the strength to show somebody else that you respect them enough to push them is such a deep form of love. Like if you have a little bit of love for somebody, you might be nice to them all the time. You might not want to ever push them outside their comfort zone. But if you love someone to a really deep level, if you love someone on a deep level as Christ would love them, then sometimes that means encouraging them through the form of pushing them outside their comfort zones and allowing them to do that for you too.
Yeah,
allowing them
exactly.
to push you outside their comfort zones through kind of like you're saying, this mentality where iron sharpens iron and you're both in this race striving for the crown of glory. And just one thing though I wanted to say is it seems really important that oh man, what was I going to say? What were we talking about just a minute ago?
Prior to the idea of encouragement, or
no, within the idea of encouragement. What was I going to say? Oh yes, sorry.
You're good.
So you mentioned that it's really important when we're striving for goals to be encouraging each other.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we need to recognize that some of our brothers and sisters in Christ might need encouragement just to get through the day. Like the goal for them is not to run some marathon.
Yeah.
It's not to accomplish some really great achievement in their career. Maybe the next step for them, the next goal that they're just trying to achieve is getting through the next day, getting through the next week, making it past some current suffering that's in their life.
Yeah.
And they need encouragement, like words of encouragement, like concrete affirmations, just to be able to stay afloat and to be able to feel the love of Christ in a concrete way. And I think what partly made me think of this is just this great quote I heard by Jordan Peterson one time on an interview where he said, there are so many people that are just dying for lack of an encouraging word. And that's kind of a sad quote in a way, but it's true that our world is devoid of encouragement. It's so filled with people that feel isolated, they feel lonely, and they feel often invisible. And so it's an enormous expression of love to simply show encouragement to other people and say, hey, I love you. I see you. Here's a way in which I see that you're making good progress. Right? Here are the ways in which I could see I'd be willing to help you through accountability and help you grow because I care about you. But here are the ways in which you're already doing things well. Yeah. And I'm just going to keep praying for you that you keep progressing in those ways. And that can happen verbally, but it can also just happen through spending time with those people and saying, I'm going to spend some of my weekend with you, even though maybe you're not someone I'm ordinarily that close with, but I see that you need encouragement. And so I want to provide that for you.
Yeah.
Sorry, we've kind of gone on a tangent towards encouragement, but I think it's really important in this whole theme.
That was central to finishing. Without encouragement, if I didn't see Bosco, Finbar, Lauren, and the Garlands at mile 24, especially all because it was really cool. Lauren actually made special T-shirts for everyone, including the Garland's kids, and they have 3. One of them is just an infant. She had a onesie, but she made All Good in the Brotherhood podcast running shirts for everyone,
dude.
So it has the Benedict medal and it says All Good in the Brotherhood podcast on established 2022.
Merch.
And it's a really quality shirt, really nice. It's a running shirt, so that's what I wore for the race. But even like that, they're supporting more than just running, right? They're supporting who I am. They're supporting the things that I love, the things that I strive to be. And
they actually know you, right? They
exactly.
Take the time to know something about you.
And I think that what you're talking about, encouragement, and when you said I know you and I love you, we should really all work on specializing our encouragement for our friends.
Yes, not being generic.
Yeah, exactly. That's why sometimes I struggle with affirmations and encouragement of other people, is because I don't want to sound generic. I don't want to sound like I'm giving platitudes to people.
You don't want to sound cheesy and superficial, so you avoid it altogether, right?
But when I truly care about someone, I feel like I've learned how to really give them a word of affirmation that means something that they know is true and not just me saying something. And I know when I've received that at times, there are some friends who they know the kind of encouraging words that will actually really, really mean something to me. And if someone can tell me like, oh, Francisco, you're a super good athlete. I'm like, yeah, like I know that. I don't like, I don't always necessarily need to be encouraged in that. But if someone is like, Francisco, you're a good friend. That's a really good word of encouragement for me because I often struggle to think that I am a good friend. So when someone recognizes, particularly those places that we doubt about ourselves, if someone can speak the truth into like, no, I want to encourage you against the lie that you believe that is actually true. So yeah, I think that's something.
It's not
for
a matter
us
of deceiving you and saying,
Exactly.
I think he's just worried that he might not be a good friend, so I'm going to say he's a good friend. It's they genuinely recognize a good in you that you fail to see in yourself.
Right. So maybe that should be our homework this week. Pick one or two people who you're close with and give them an encouraging word that maybe it takes you a little time to think about it or to formalize because you want to be really intentional about it, specific.
Yeah.
Send someone a text or give them, better yet, call them straight up and just say, hey, I want to tell you this. I want to encourage you here because this is what I see or this is what I love about you. And just be really, really specific and intentional and personal about it with them. Not just like, oh, I love, what blah, 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 X, Y, and Z that like I could love about almost anyone or even about a dog. No, that maybe something especially if you're one of the only people that knows this about this person. Encourage them in that place. So.
Absolutely. Yes, and that should be the homework.
Yeah.
We have to each give some encouragement to some people and specific stuff, like you said, and stuff that's tailored to the person themselves.
So sweet.
And honestly, if that's not comfortable for them, or like if
you mean in giving or receiving?
No, like giving it.
Okay, yeah.
Like if anyone in the audience, because it can,
it can feel
abnormal
weird
for us. It's not something our society generally does.
Thrives.
Like,
we don't
just go around and throwing encouragements to one another, so it feels almost awkward or cheesy. But if we're uncomfortable with giving encouragements to other people, first of all, we need to recognize that discomfort and acknowledge that that's a flaw in ourselves that we need to work on. But we also need to ask ourselves, would we rather run the risk of maybe seeming cheesy or superficial by giving out these words of encouragement, or would we rather, on the other hand, avoid being cheesy or avoid any risk of putting ourselves out there, but then wind up just failing to be a good friend or failing to provide a moment of grace for somebody?
What someone needs. Yeah, that's a good
because
thought.
Especially like you said, just reaching out and actually calling somebody to say something kind to them could make their day, could make their week.
Yeah, you have no idea.
Change their life. Right? It sounds dramatic, but there are so many stories when people tell about their conversion stories or stories in which they're telling about how they were at some point in their life depressed or suicidal or something, and they say, but there was just one day where something happened that changed everything. And often those little moments are things like an encouraging word from somebody or just a random phone call, and that changed their life from going in a very dark trajectory towards being a very positive one. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, that's all I was gonna. I was just gonna basically say what you said. So good job.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. No, don't apologize, dude. Sweet.
Big chillin'.
Yeah, big chillin'. So yeah.
Well, dude, marathon. Wow, that was lit.
Yeah, and this is me formally inviting you to do one with me. So we'll see. I don't know. I think you would actually enjoy it more than you think.
No, I actually don't doubt that I would enjoy it because I love running. But
well, maybe we'll see. Maybe somewhere sooner than later, everyone will be able to watch as we both talk about running a race together. Oh, dude, that story would probably also be its own level of metal. Like that would be so sick.
It'd be hardcore.
I would love to finish a 26 miler with you. That would be dope.
Absolutely.
Anyways, hopefully you all enjoyed today's episode. If there's anything you particularly liked, we'd love to hear what it was. Leave that comment below. And specifically, if we got any fellow marathon runners out there, what was your experience like? What did you gain from it? What was something you learned about yourself in it? Join the community of the 0.01% of people who've ever run a marathon in the world, which is crazy.
Nice. That's gnarly.
Or that word of encouragement, maybe that you're going to send a friend. Maybe you don't drop their name, but, what you're maybe planning on telling someone else so that we can build a spirit of encouragement here in this community. That'd be great. Yeah,
Everybody here do that, by the way.
everyone
Everybody
do it.
listening to this.
Drop. You can drop comments on
telling myself
Spotify
too.
or on YouTube. So if you're only audio or only a video follower, like you can do both. Yeah, so sweet.
Totally.
Well, thank you for joining us for an All Good in the Brotherhood podcast. I'm Brother Francisco, the monk. Joining me on the phone is Nate, the bro, my blood brother, because I'm finding out more and more people didn't realize that.
Some people haven't realized that this whole time that we're brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, read the description of the podcast before you listen to it. It says we're brothers.
It just goes for the throat.
What?
Never mind. Anyways, so thanks, Nate. I appreciate you being on here and be able to tell the story of the race with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, anyways, thank you for your prayers and your encouragement. My family, especially my sister Sarah, was so encouraging in preparation
she's
for
the only
it.
other one for our family.
Yeah, I know.
So far.
I know. And it was like 12 or 15 years ago when she ran her race.
Yeah, dude.
So I finally joined the club and the
OG.
family too. So, yeah. Thank you all for joining. I hope you have a wonderful, God bless day. Adios.
Peace.